This week, we're going to look a little closer at the rear view of our pants and discuss the full and flat seat fitting issues. These are what I like to call companion fit issues because the solutions to each of these are essentially the exact opposite of each other. While one will require an increase in the pattern dimensions, the other will require a decrease, but both use the same alteration lines in the pattern adjustment technique. I'm Alexandra Morgan from In-House Pattern Studio, and before we jump into solving this week's issue, once again, there are a few things you need to confirm before you start the fitting process. Make sure you have your balance lines marked on your garment. Be sure that you have chosen the correct pattern size, and of course use the fitting order as I've taught you throughout the Perfect Fit Guide. This means length first, contour second, and width or circumference last. Now, this tutorial is another contour issue, so make sure that you've addressed any length issues before you solve for this particular fitting issue. If you saw last week's video, you'll already know that I've also created a scale block pattern for pants that you can download for free. I'll leave the link below so you can print them out and follow along with the pattern adjustments as I'll be showing you throughout this video series. Okay, now let's first go over how you'll know if you need a full seat adjustment, how to assess the volume you need to add, and the pattern adjustments that will correct for that fit issue. I'll discuss the flat seat adjustment in relationship to this one as we go along. Once again here, Margie is going to help us with demonstrating the fit issues that might arise if you need a full seat adjustment. So let's take a look at Margie. If we turn her to her profile side, you can actually see quite clearly that more of her hip girth measurement is actually going to be needed at the back of the body. This is automatically going to indicate that her back pattern is probably going to need to be wider than her front pattern in this case. Now, you can also consider other things as fit issues. So if we turn her to the back, you're going to see she has a few other problems going on here. You can see her back waistline is gaping. She's got quite a bit of tightness across the back hip here. Often you'll see radiating drag lines around the buttocks here. You're also going to notice that there's going to be sort of fabric cupping underneath the butt cheeks here. And very often what you'll see are sort of drag lines pointing to the back crotch area. Now, all of these things indicate that you need more length and more width over the back of your pattern piece. There's a few other things that you can look at to assess if you need this correction or not, and they are this. You're going to notice here that the back waistline of the pant is not meeting the back waistline of her body. So right away, I know that she definitely needs more length in the back crotch area in order to meet that waistline position. Now, of course, this only works if you are fitting a pair of pants that are supposed to be sitting at your natural waistline. So I always suggest that you do fit a pair of pants that land at your natural waist. You can always lower the waistlines later. You might also notice that the back hip line and high hip line are actually dipping down into sort of a V shape. This also always indicates that you don't have enough length in the back rise. If you actually take a look at your vertical balance line, which is your side seam line, you're going to find that it's going to be tilting toward the back. This is because you need more fabric at the back of the body. So what's happening is the back of the body is borrowing fabric from the front. More clearly is you'll know if your side seam is tilting toward the back, you need more width in your pattern of the back pattern piece, and if your waistline is not sitting at your natural waistline, you need more length in the back rise. Okay, so those are how you're going to assess a full seat adjustment. So a flat seat adjustment is really the exact opposite of this. This means that you have too much length and too much width at the back of the pattern. You need to reduce it. So you need to decrease the amount. What you'll normally find if you have a flat seat is basically all that fabric is going to be drooping down and sort of landing in drag lines and flatness and fullness at the back of the body where you don't have enough to fill it out. But let's first discuss how to assess how much of an adjustment that you need? Well, there's a couple of ways. So one of the things that you can do for the full seat adjustment is obviously you can release your side seams. For this, you'd have to release both side seams, and then what you'll do is measure the distance at the hip line or the high hip, wherever the biggest prominence is on your back buttocks, and measure the distance between your two seam lines. That's going to be how much width you need to add to your pattern. The other way is similar to the tummy adjustment that we did last week. You're going to measure the distance from the waistline of the pant to the waistline of your natural waistline, so that you can actually get a calculation there of how much length you need to add. Now, other clues you might use if you're fitting a pair of pants that don't sit at your natural waistline is you can use the amount that your hip lines are V-ing. So you can put a tape measure right across along your hip line and see how much that line is dipping at center back to be able to assess approximately how much length you need to add. But these are just going to be guesstimates and a place to start. Okay, so if it's a flat seat adjustment that you want to assess the amount you need to reduce your pattern, all you're going to do is pin out the amount. So in other words, you've got too much fabric across the buttocks, so you're going to pinch it out with pins on both sides evenly. Now you have to do it evenly on both sides because you don't want to take too much out of one side of your pattern. Length, same thing. You're going to just pin up around center back until your hip lines become level, and that's going to tell you how much you need to reduce the length by in your pattern adjustment. Okay, so let's get started with just a quick view of what the full seat adjustment actually looks like after the pattern adjustment is done. And you're going to see here that it definitely adds length to the center back area of the pattern, and it also adds width, and you can see that in the extra dart volume that you're getting, and also the extra width that you're getting across the thigh, which is what you're going to need to create enough volume to address that full seat. Now, the opposite to this adjustment, as I said, or the companion fitting issue, is also the flat seat. So I wanted to give you a quick overview of what that looks like. So in the flat seat, you'll notice here that the pattern pieces are overlapping. So this is how you will reduce the length and width of your back pattern piece. Okay, so I have created some slash lines here, and just to reiterate, the same slash lines apply for both the full seat and the flat seat pattern adjustment. We're just going to be opening for the full seat and closing or overlapping our sections for the flat seat. So your first slash line is going to go from center back parallel to the hip line, perpendicular to the center line of the pant, and then you're going to go to the dart point. From the dart point up until you reach the corner of the side seam waistline of your pant. You're also going to have a slash line that's going to go from the center of the dart here to the dart point. Next, you're going to draw another slash line, and this one will be diagonal, as you can see. That's going to be just inside the center back seam of the pant and pointing directly to the knee notch, or the knee point, basically, knee line. And you'll see here that I've just joined that as a straight line. And there's going to be one more slash line, which is this little one here. And that's just going to go, I've just actually drawn it perpendicular to the crotch depth line there, and just joining to somewhere along that inseam line. So these are the slash lines that you're going to be using for both the full seat and flat seat adjustment. Now you're going to notice that there's a couple of hinge points, so I'm going to shift this as if we're going to be doing the full seat adjustment. And you can see here that automatically that will increase the dart volume and increase the length at the back. So to place this section, I want you to determine how much length you needed to add to your pattern. I'm going to say you can start with doing half of the amount here. So for instance, if you had to increase the length of your back rise by 1 inch total, I'm going to say let's draw a guideline that's a 1/2 inch away from this slash line. And I'm just drawing a parallel line to the slash line at the bottom here. So I'll do this in dotted line. And what I want you to do here is place this top section parallel to the very first slash line at the bottom here. Now you're going to see here that because I've opened up here, automatically I'm getting more dart volume. This part here is going to eliminate that gaping back waistline. This is going to be adding more length and more width to your back pattern piece. But there are a few other sections that we need to shift just to make sure that our pattern isn't totally distorted. Take this section here and shift it over until it meets the existing seam line here. So you can already see the extra length and width that you've added to this back hip line area. Remember, we've only used half the total length adjustment that we need to make to the pant pattern. So we're going to use this slash line to open it up a little bit further. So if I open this by 1/2 inch and I open this by 1/2 inch, I'll be changing my overall back rise length by the total of 1 inch that we discovered was missing as an example. Again, we've added more length, more width to the back of the pant. This section is adding more rise length, so which is going to allow this rise to shift up and hopefully now meet your natural waistline. This section here is going to help you eliminate any drag lines that you might have been seeing coming from the crotch point here. And it's also going to give you a little bit less cupping under your buttocks because you've got some extra width in your thigh as well. Okay, so that's the full adjustment. All you need to do to finish off this pattern is basically blend in your lines so that you close these gaps. Now, as I said, the flat seat adjustment is exactly the same, only you're going to be reducing or overlapping your pieces. So I want you to see here that automatically my dart volume has become smaller because I don't have the prominence in the back buttock area that a larger dart will accommodate. This is going to eliminate the extra fabric that you have in the width and the length. Next week, we're going to dive even further into pant fitting. I'll see you then. Bye for now.